Okay. How do I turn it off? Turn it off! Turn it off! Jump scares are actually kinda really cool, actually. They are by far the most effective technique for a quick and easy scare. So easy, in fact, that they are regarded as the most lazy way to scare someone. How much jump scares are used have made them, for better or for worse, a staple in modern horror. Their monotony has placed them in a very interesting position. It's fascinating to see how artists handle cliches in order to make them unique, especially if said cliche is one intended to trigger a fight or flight response. Okay, this is starting to sound boring. It's Halloween time, haha! Time to make something spooky! Ooh, I'm a cute little ghost! Ooh!
Michael.
Yeah.
This will not be a historical analysis or a defense video. Jump scares are rather shit, honestly. This will be more of an appreciation post with things I admire. So let's get into it. In Australia, there was a game review show called
Hello, and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Bongcheon.
And I'm Hex.
Last week, some of the world's greatest
It only played at night, and Little Burritos 109 always stayed up to watch it. The gullible fool not choosing to watch the daytime, kid-friendly sister show, Spawn Point, like a good idiot child. One night, he watched an episode where they reviewed the not-horror puzzle game, Conundrum.
Psst, that's the game featured in the intro of this video.
In this review, out of nowhere, at night, they just casually drop.
And what was with this?
All hail the Hypno-Ike.
Scaring the absolute crap out of me. Not once, but twice.
I'm giving it 11 out of 10.
I am a stupid piss baby that gets scared really easily. Most of my childhood revolved around me being scared of absolutely nothing. Games like Minecraft gave me the heebie-jeebies because of how open the world is and how it's both quiet and unexpectedly loud at times. Fear of the unknown came into play, especially when I always used a terrible low-end computer to play. I always had the theory in the back of my mind the maze game phase would probably get me at any moment. This was before Herobrine became popular. Learning about him did not help at all. The maze game phase. Yep, for some reason this is the pinnacle of horror in my young mind. An early internet screamer prank. It is a little bit spooky and it does an awesome job at executing the scare, making the player focus on the screen and be easily susceptible to a scare. These early screamers have a reputation for being the first of their kind, and because of how unexpected they are. Some backstories are just weird. Did you know that Ghost Car is a coffee commercial? Being trailblazers establish a standard due to their popularity. It can in turn result in something that is made. Slender is completely garbage, graphic-wise, but it's absolutely fantastic in lighting and sound design. Each page adds another layer of sound that increases tension and can amplify the jump scare. The environmental juxtaposition between the uncertainty of the open woods and the enclosed tight spaces of landmarks makes for a setting that is consistently dangerous to be in. Being the first Slenderman game essentially created the status quo for all subsequent fan games. Mechanics stayed reminiscent of 8 pages with the same combat method to avoid Slenderman. It kinda gets less scary over time. So, how does one make a new scary Slender experience? In Slendytubbies, yes, I am going there, it appropriates the Slender style in a way that makes for a refreshing take. It manages to reimagine a children's property into a setting and genre not commonplace, which is really funny. Being scared of a kid's show? Well, don't you look silly. In contrast to the player being stalked by a tall faceless creature accompanied by a tension-driving atmosphere, the player is instead stalked by a distorted-faced Teletubby accompanied by zero tension-driving atmosphere. Slendytubbies goes from 0 to 100 real quick, and it is able to take the player off guard doing so. The threat of a Teletubby A-pose sliding towards you is much more threatening, especially since you're actually able to see it approach you. Tinky Winky is constantly following you, and you just don't know it. That is until... such a loud, blood-curdling scream that immediately tells you to get out. It is so long that you don't know when the chasing ends or if you're safe. The duration of a jump scare is really weird. After the jump, that's it. That's the jump scare. If it kept going after the initial jump, then what? The RPG game Ao Oni is a great example because I can't speak very smart. Trying to escape a haunted mansion, you, on occasion, will encounter the titular purple guy. The horror of Ao Oni comes from his protruding realistic design that's alien from the rest of the game's visuals. It's a scary monster. The second they're on screen, you know it's time to piss off. When jump scares occur, it's always unpredictable. Unless you're a speedrunner. Going into each room is a game of chance. Once a jump scare occurs, it doesn't simply go away, you have to deal with the problem. This is a bit of a stretch. It's more of a jump scare's aftermath than the jump scare itself, so I'll quickly move on. How the audience anticipates a scare can be used against them, morphing the execution in a way that ultimately still makes it a good jump scare. A mysterious Japanese video online does a scare similar to Lake Mungo, but plays with anticipation in a certain way. It's a pretty damn good jump scare, as the audience doesn't anticipate zero transition into a jump scare. No quick movement towards the camera or anything, it's just bang and bang. The mysteriousness of it also makes it scary. The live leak watermark does not help the case. That is until... wait. What is the deal with jump scares in cars and commercials? Good job, Autoway! Anticipation can do a lot just because of the association with horror. I Spy a Spooky Mansion involves the player locating various items in a, well, spooky mansion. Other than the creaking interior of the mansion, ambience is minimal and silent, with the only sense of oral comfort coming from finding the correct object on your list. And if you're stuck, have fun becoming a victim to the dreary and unknowing ambience of... Everything in this mansion is very tame. There's no perceived threat, just solve the puzzles, get a piece of the map, and find your way out. The final piece is in the attic, just go up and get it. This is the first and only location with restricted visuals and moans of... something. This is the most vulnerable the player feels in the entire game. Being constantly on the edge, it is tense to get through the puzzle and leave as fast as possible. But what if something happens here? Is there going to be a jump scare? Lo and behold, after finally locating the last object on your list, you solve the puzzle, and then you lose control of your flashlight to one spot in the room. And it's your skeleton friend. You get the final map piece, do a few extra puzzles, and find your way out, and nothing happens whatsoever. This is a kid's edutainment game. Why would there be jump scares? The game is consistently spooky, but never states if something would jump at the player, but in return it never states if you're safe from them. So which is it? Find out.
You're in for a scare.
The inferior mansion horror, Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion, does explicitly acknowledge jump scares. Well shit. This is gonna be spooky. It establishes itself to be a very cute and tongue-in-cheek game, with its setting and how it accomplishes jump scares. Oh, delicious RNG. You have the potential to be jump scared in any room, so you have to constantly be on guard before entering the next one, which can be really hard once you get introduced to the other specimen. Once one of these guys are on your tail, you best be leaving fast. With limited stamina and your brain trying to wrap around where the exit is, it can get really stressful. Then the tense music dies down. It's finally safe to relax. The minimalism is utterly brilliant! What about jump scares in media that aren't horror-oriented? The comedy film Pee-wee's Big Adventure is so goofy and childish that it's somehow made for one of the most memorable jump scares.
And when they finally pulled the driver's body...
This is a movie about someone looking for their lost bike.
Shrek! It looked like this.
Large Marge is such an impactful character from how much of a 180 this small 2-minute segment is compared to the other 1 hour and 28 minutes of the movie. Let's go with something that's not directed by Tim Burton. Ben 10 Race Against Time is the live-action movie based on Ben 10, and by far the greatest cinematic experience ever forged. Who knew that in this TV movie on a kids network that there would be a dead guy on screen?
I'm not dead!
My mistake, a grotesque decomposing zombie on the brink of death. I used to skip this part as a kid. It was that scary. It's definitely unexpected for a kids movie. Not expecting horror in something can make it harder to interpret what will be thrown at you. Awkward Dimensions Redux is another non-horror work that casually hits the player with a scary setting, on the second level. It contains a dark room filled with doors, the only light and sound being emitted from a projector. Doors have been established as a method to progression previously, but trying to enter them here does not help. The ambiguity of this section aids in making this part scary. The player feels helpless and their actions inconsequential. There is no perceivable way to end the nightmare, even with the threat of a creature hard to comprehend. Awkward Dimensions is something that should be perceived through an artistic lens. Although not a literal horror game, it can be symbolically interpreted as horror. I just really wanted to talk about the game. Tune in last Thursday when I pull a beginner's guide and make a video essay on Awkward Dimensions Redux and video games as an art form. Iron Lung is one huge blue ball with most jump scares coming from binaural audio. Is it just this old rust bucket of a submarine malfunctioning and falling apart? Or is there something here with you on this planet filled with blood? Well, what are you expecting? This shit-ass camera doesn't have a fantastic quality, so the game constantly teases you with putting stuff in the background of your photos. Being trapped in these great depths with constantly depleting oxygen levels and noises beyond comprehension around every corner makes for a really unnerving experience.
Oxygen notification.
Getting into a repetitious pattern makes the player really open to baits, especially during the last leg of the game. This is the first comprehensible image of an actual threat, and it is so close or so large that you don't know what it is. Now with the submarine being severely damaged and there's one last item to scan at their most exposed, why not use this as another opportunity to do another scare with the camera? Being trapped in one room for the entire game makes the last scare hit a lot harder since this big shit has been with you the whole time. Manifold Garden is not a horror game, but its visuals are so overwhelming. Upon completion of an area, the player is treated to a staring contest with a deity of continuously shifting geometry. It's a daunting presence that has the same energy as Be Not Afraid. It's slow. It's not a jump scare. I still shit myself every time I see it on screen. Then again, I have a fear of absolutely massive things, so what constitutes as scary is entirely subjective and personal, but still entirely valid. Put that away. Comprehension can make for a great jump scare. Looking at something for so long and then realizing that it's a big no-no is really awesome. The media doesn't call itself to be something to fear, but it's something that only when your brain notices can make you jump. It's a more unconventional form of jump scare. Usually this is more effective when actually playing the game, since your focus is on the character, until you notice the face that has been staring at you for the past 5 minutes. Parasite pulls off a genuinely horrifying jump scare. This overwhelming use of space, for the only movement coming from a small section of the shot. While the little scream transition is essentially the jump scare part of the scene, the real meat and potatoes comes from the audience trying to comprehend what the heck they're supposed to be looking at in the scene. Can this part even be a jump scare? If the brain interprets it the same way as it would a jump scare upon revelation, then it's A-OK on this list. List? This is a list now? Top jump scares in all of everything! Number... All these end of chapter cliffhangers are a scare in itself. Ugh. Literature can't do jump scare. It's hard to make quick imagery with words that can make you go ooh. All they can really do is make someone more exposed to a bump in the night. Games and films can choose not to have either audio or visuals to still achieve a jump scare. However, the mediums that can't work with and visuals simultaneously are rather impressive considering their severe handicap. Of course, their effectiveness varies. Horror manga artist Junji Ito has become notorious for using the page turn. A technique that essentially builds up to an overwhelming, horrifying illustration that immediately grabs your attention upon turning the page. A jump scare without sound. A jump scare without visuals. Music has a lot of potential to scare given its unpredictableness. Grievances and Dead Malls is a 20-minute decay of decay. With breakcore fashion, there are loud noises, but halfway through the album, it's just casually decided, most sounds from Nero's day at Disneyland are comprised of loud sounds, but this is the most jarring one. But what about something less consistently loud, and more unpredictable? Subway Song by The Cure is the only song like it from its associated album. Being more distinct from other punk tracks, it's one of the shortest songs on the record, and it's rather smart with how the jump scare is presented. The Thriller laugh is a jump scare. It's loud and it plays once the music dies down for one last unexpected spook. That is, if you've never heard Thriller before. The music video accommodates this scare with a long freeze frame of scary-eyed Michael Jackson. Although once scary, it doesn't have much of an impact anymore because of its reputation, akin to Maze Game, Ghost Car, Slender, or even Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah. The best part of FNAF is that there is a motive for the jump scares, that being a penalty for being a pussy. The core focus of the game is not to get scared within this dark and enclosed area, and to do that you have to not waste power like a fool, which is really hard to do with the player's initial experience with the game.
Maybe just a little.
When it came to future installments, it seemed like the logical usage of jump scares was thrown into the trash. This of course doesn't make them bad games. FNAF 2 started the branch out, but at least they were used for the sake of lore. FNAF 4 exaggerates the threat and makes the player feel more helpless, but also they pull some absolute bollocks. Sister Location makes each area unique and allows for Tune in last Thursday when I create a video essay / retrospective of the entire FNAF franchise that definitely won't become outdated. The static jump scares are refreshing because of how different they are. They're unexpected and frightening, but also adds a sense of importance. Sudden revelation of daunting static imagery aside, what if the sudden revelation comes from looking at the exact same still image? An image, unbeknownst to you, has someone or something in the frame that has been looking at you longer than you have of it. Those when you see it images are definitely a relic of early internet. Although being a more silly example of a jump scare, there was still something about them that just made them very enticing. What is it when I see it? Will I, in fact, shit bricks upon seeing it? Probably not nowadays. Goodness, I'm turning into bones just by looking at some of these. The GIF pranks are funny. It takes away a level of safety where the viewer once thought they were safe from an animated scare. Horang became an artist notorious for their experimental webcomics. The Bongcheon-Dong Ghost is their more infamous work. It's an extremely short comic about a ghost. What makes it special is the animated jump scare. The page auto-scrolls through the panels to play a little animation with a startling sound. It's an awesome way to scare beyond the traditional conventions of a webcomic. Conventions. What does it mean to be unconventional? Integuments, Shadow of Shrek, yes, I am going there, baits by forcing the player out of the game and creating a document saying, turn it off. Failing to comply will result in...
This is the part where you're supposed to run away.
Okay, yeah, this is a really goofy example, but it has the potential to scare someone. This one goes out to all the characters that have been reinvented to be actually scary. To add on to their already meta narrative and gameplay, Doki Doki Literature Club has an exclusive jump scare for those recording the game.
The Slayer! The Slayer!
The jump scare isn't a monster, just the sudden reveal of being shown personal or revealing information that you wouldn't expect the game to know. It can work really, really well, or make the game a whole lot funnier.
Scary.
Editor's note, it looks like I'm just completely shitting on Start Survey in this section. That is not my intention at all. It is a really fun, short, free game that has some really refreshing elements with an ending that I would not have expected from a mile away, and it's great. It gets on another level when you have no control over anything. The Luna games are insane. In the early period of creepypasta video games was the introduction of Luna Game. This looks like some simple little screamer bait game, no big deal, but when actually played, it's revealed to be much more malicious. The game would manipulate and add files, brick your computer for a full minute, make the game unplayable after finishing, just doing very unpredictable stuff. There are 6 of these games, 7 including the fan game that will also be discussed. It's a complete mystery of who created and shared these games over 10 years ago. For a time, people thought these games were viruses, but don't worry, they are completely safe to play. Luna games are just another form of pranking, but with the greater repercussion of needing to manually delete the various text and image documents titled "The End is Nay." Luna Game 0 is one of the more fleshed out games, with the most creative scare in the series right at the end of the game. You never know if you're safe, even once the game is over. These commands might actually be really easy to execute with an engine like GameMaker. I have no clue! I'm not a game developer. But how these scares are done with a game that is so lackluster is really clever. Luna 5 is a fan-made game that is able to match the same energy, but it does something different. How's this for a jump scare? Hang on. This is scary, man. GameMaker is scary, man. There are several other short horror games that exploit the engine that can add to the "oh, so scary" factor. A recent arrival being that of Catto Boi. Catto Boi has helped a new generation of people worry about their hard drive being wiped. This is an ongoing series of games made by Mango Key, Kai, K, that are in the same vein as Luna Game, but without the ponies and double the ways it tries to spook the player. The games have fun little fourth wall puzzles like Doki Doki and I'm Scared, but what makes it different is that most of the time playing Catto Boi typically involves the player not actually playing the game. Launching notepads, changing wallpapers, initiating computer shutdowns, and so many other ways that the game tries to shit stir the player. There are some extremely cheap jump scares, but where it shines are, of course, the ones that perform outside of standard gameplay. It's a fun little goofy prank, with fun gameplay and a consistent narrative for those wanting to connect the dots, but the game doesn't try to be any more than what it is. What's scarier than a game dicking around with your computer? The game that has more than 80 gigabytes of impulsive downloaded mods that clog my space. Garry's mod has become an outlet for creators to make really freaky shit, but in a source game. There are recreations of several of the scares already showcased, and many more, both ported into the game and entirely unique. From horror maps to enemies that jump scare, there is no end to what Gmodders are able to accomplish. Gmodders. Something that is coming back around in the Gmod community are nextbots, and it's great. They're just giant PNGs that chase the player, and they're downright horrifying. They always know where you are, and they're near indestructible. There's nothing scarier than thinking you're in a safe area, but then all of a sudden all you can hear is... There is something so threatening in the way that they're not animated, but chase you at such high speeds. Either spotting them coming towards you or eventually getting hit by them, they can be the subject for some great scares. Not to mention characters that don't move unless you're looking at them. That can cause some unexpected jumps to occur. There is a lot going on with the unsettling atmosphere of single-player Garry's mod. But there is a lack of jump scares because, well, these types of maps don't intend to have oogie boogies. This eerie feeling has been translated through plenty of ARGs and creepy videos online, and they do a fantastic job at maintaining the nostalgic aesthetic with ambiguous mystery. Side tangent. Analogue Horror is a fascinating subgenre of content that everyone hates. The outlet was able to help popularize jump scares that didn't feel the incentive to be in your face. But because they are a repetitive theme in these videos, it has made them recognized as stupid? A little bit. If Analogue Horror is able to become so popular that the audience can call out repetitive techniques and themes, then it's a calling card for people to do something creative with the trope. Flip it on its head, do something different, subvert expectations, somehow make it something that can scare once more. But most importantly, these aren't jump scares anymore! Haha, yeah, what's a jump scare? Okay, the video's over now. Please let me know some of your favorite jump scares down below. Yeah.